Today is a very special day. Not only because up here in the Northern Hemisphere it's the spring equinox, marking the end of a long and grey winter, but also because today is dedicated to celebrating the movement that is changing the face of nature conservation and the actual physical face of the planet. A movement that fills us with hope, even in the midst of the societal and climate collapse we are lucky enough to experience. A paradigm shift in the way humanity tries to survive on this planet, and how we share it with all its inhabitants just trying to do the same. Rewilding has become an obsession of mine and of many other optimistic people, and for good reason. So, on the very first World Rewilding Day, I will give you a little crash course on what it is, why it works, and how it too should fill you with hope and excitement. As I'm sure most of you are aware, we are currently in the midst of a complete climatic reversal that has basically never been experienced by life since its emergence. And as important as renewable energies and reducing pollution is, we have already crossed biogeographical tipping points that will alter the lives of humanity for centuries to come. Right now, we need to find a way to reverse or at least mitigate the effects we are having on the environment. We need to find something that captures carbon, cleans our air and water, and provides security for the livelihood of our species. A solution to prevent the grasslands from burning, the fish from disappearing, and to slowly but surely pull our climatic system out of the self-perpetuating warming that we have brought upon ourselves. Up until now, conventional conservation works by serving as an oasis for the ever-diminishing number of wild plants and animals, allowing for these areas to continue capturing carbon, instead of being turned into coffee plantations or Amazon megafactories. However, this method of conservation does not always take into account that most of the environments we are protecting are already greatly degraded and are bound to collapse at some point in the near future. An ecosystem works like a well-oiled machine. For it to continue working, it requires all of the parts to be in place and in good shape. You can't really drive a car if it's missing a steering wheel or if the tires are flat. In a network of ecological interactions, removing even a single species can have catastrophic effects on all others, directly and indirectly. And considering that in the last 50 years we've lost nearly 3/4 of all wildlife populations and 1 million other species are on the brink of extinction, if the biosphere was like a car, then we are driving a 30-year-old neglected Volkswagen Golf straight into a brick wall. I hate being the bearer of bad news, but this is unfortunately the reality we have to face. So what would you do if your car tires popped? Would you abandon it on the spot and walk along the highway back home? No, of course not. All you need to do is fix what is broken. If nature was this broken vehicle, then rewilding is the mechanic who not only fixes your tires, but cleans the interior, changes your oil, and gives your Golf a new layer of paint and wax. In the year 1990, the term rewilding was used for the first time. A progressive approach to conservation, it acknowledges that nature actually knows best when it comes to its health and management. It's about letting life take care of itself by facilitating the natural processes that shape land, sea, and air for the benefit of all local species. With an intimate understanding of ecology, which insects pollinate which flower, what plants does a deer eat, how often do lynx hunt, ecologists create a sort of model for what species need to exist in an ecosystem for it to be most functional and self-sustaining. And with this knowledge, our landscapes can begin to heal once we put the pieces of our ecological puzzle back together. For the very first time in the history of life on Earth, organisms have started to become aware of the dynamic system of interactions that surrounds them and begun to defy their animalistic and sometimes destructive instincts guided by short-sighted survival. We are starting to adopt a way of thinking that considers and aims to restore the biosphere that connects all living things and that we absolutely depend on for our own prosperity. That is why rewilding shines such a bright light of hope on the often dark world of a conservationist. An epiphany that is changing the way we look at protecting our beloved Mother Nature. And since this movement began, hundreds of projects sprouted in all corners of the globe. Rewilding brings nature back in a way that has never been seen before. Basically, for the first time in recorded history, there are now parts of the world where the number of species and their populations are increasing as opposed to the steady decline we've seen historically. From bison and horses to marmots, vultures, tapirs, and even jaguars, our ecosystems are being refilled with the charismatic wildlife that coexisted with us for millennia. This is not just for the benefit of the animals. Of course, it is our responsibility to bring back the species we have extirpated, but people really do benefit from rewilding as much as the ecosystems do. For example, large grazers such as bovines and wild horses have been reintroduced all over the world in order to combat wildfires. Their feeding prevents trees from growing too close together and grasses becoming too tall. This makes it harder for wildfires to spread and thus saves local communities billions of dollars in damages. Similarly, the rewilding of beavers in Britain is helping farmers retain water during droughts and prevent soil erosion during floods. Beaver dams also work as giant filters, providing clean drinking water for wildlife, livestock, and humans alike. Nature-based solutions are always a win-win for humanity and wildlife. Beavers don't ask for wages, and you don't have to pay a wolf their pension. And yet they are happy to provide these services as long as we give them the right living conditions. Rewilding on a larger scale is also one of the solutions to fighting against and eventually reversing climate change. For example, bison released into the mountains of Romania have helped the area capture 10 times more carbon than it would have without them, purely because of how their grazing restores the ecological dynamics that have historically always existed. And if you aren't already sold on the sheer awesomeness of this revolutionary movement, there is something more profound and personal about rewilding. The loss of wild places isn't just an ecological and economic tragedy, it's a human tragedy too. Before agriculture and industrialization, for all of our evolutionary history, we have been deeply connected to nature. Our species thrived thanks to the intimate knowledge of all the plants and animals that we share our environment with. We depended on nature to feed ourselves and our families, worshipped animals as gods, even going through the terrifying and dangerous task of venturing deep into caves with nothing but a simple torch 20,000 years ago, just to paint horses and lions onto the walls of the cavern to eternalize our obsession and appreciation for them. A special trait of humans is our innate biophilia, a love and curiosity for nature that we are just born with. And for most of our history, it stuck with us till our very last breath. A biophilia that in recent generations has vanished in many of us and thus severed our bond with nature. We are living increasingly artificial lives, surrounded by concrete, staring at screens, breathing polluted air, and surviving off of processed foods. We created an environment that is completely alien to our mind and bodies, which have been honed by natural selection to thrive in natural environments. It's no wonder that ever more of us are plagued with depression, anxiety, and chronic illness. And here is where rewilding comes full circle. Because when we bring nature back, it heals us too. Countless studies have shown that exposure to pristine ecosystems reduces stress, anxiety, and even symptoms of depression. As little as 2 hours a week lowers cortisol, improves mood, and enhances cognitive function. The key word here being pristine ecosystems. A meticulously controlled city park or golf course is not nearly as beneficial to our mental health as a thriving woodland pasture brimming with life. Rewilding is going to bring these pristine and biodiverse areas closer to you. It regards access to nature as a human right for the benefit of our mental and physical health. It's not just a movement in conservation, the solution to cleaner air and water and a stable climate. It's adopting a new way of thinking about our position as the stewards of the planet, not its conquerors. It forces people to exercise empathy for all living things and acknowledge the essential roles that every bee, weed, and shark plays in our own livelihoods. The simple act of giving back to nature revitalizes the innate biophilia that is so characteristic of our species, and cures us of many of the diseases of our modern industrialized world. This is why rewilding matters to you as much as it does to me. Whoever you may be, wherever you are, you can mark my words that sooner or later our cities will become as green as the thriving woodlands that surround them. People will embrace animals back into their lives and will cherish our coexistence. We will design our infrastructure to consider the local species who help us keep our crops green, our water clean, and our economy as stable as the climate. And this isn't some utopian fantasy. People from all over the world, from India to Romania, Argentina and Scotland, are coming together to make this a reality, and are already showing us that a world where humanity and nature can coexist and work together is possible. The transition is already on its way. The rewilding mindset will begin to creep into more aspects of our day-to-day lives. Because by restoring the planet, we are restoring ourselves. I hope you enjoyed the video and are now feeling a bit more hopeful about the future now that you learned about rewilding. I also really suggest you do some reading on the exciting progress the movement has made so far. Also, I haven't uploaded a video in so long because I was on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean on a trip to Argentina. But in my time I was able to write some scripts and came up with a lot of good ideas, so it won't be 4 months until my next upload. Until then, happy World Rewilding Day, touch some grass, and spread the word of rewilding to everyone you know.